It's the year 49 BC. Julius Caesar stops at the edge of the Rubicon River, his legions ready for a decision that could change everything. With the weight of history on his shoulders, he considers his next move, knowing it could ignite a civil war that would forever alter the future of Rome. As he utters the words, "Alea iacta est," the die is cast. The air fills with tension. Will he lead his army across, defying the Senate, and thus sealing his fate? After hours of deep introspection, Caesar does the unthinkable. Julius Caesar was a man whose life can only be described as legendary. His never-ending pursuit of power, military genius, and even his tragic death at the hands of members of the Senate laid the groundwork for the Roman Republic to become one of the greatest empires in history. His deeds were so influential that Roman emperors adopted the name Caesar as a title and inspired other rulers to use similar titles like Kaiser and Tsar to command respect and authority. But what exactly does one have to do to achieve such immortality? It is often said that power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did and it never will. And Caesar was not the exception. Gaius Julius Caesar was born on July 12 or 13 in 100 BC. He belonged to the prestigious Julian clan, which claimed descent from the goddess Venus. His father was Gaius Julius Caesar, who served as senator and praetor in Rome, and his mother was a wealthy noblewoman named Aurelia Cota. He was also the nephew of the great Gaius Marius, the Old. Like any Roman aristocrat, his early life was filled with knowledge that came from the best teachers of the time. Philosophy, rhetoric, and politics were his main teachings. Caesar's life had its first key point at the age of 15, when his father died, making him the head of his family. However, even at such a young age, his uncle Gaius Marius had already greatly influenced his political vision and critical thinking, given that Gaius Marius was widely respected in Rome due to his military and political achievements. In addition to this, Julius Caesar developed a deep admiration for Alexander the Great and the extraordinary feats he had achieved. Alexander was his hero. Julius looked up to him, and he wanted to be like him. Still 15 years old, he made the significant but uncommon decision to become a priest and was given the title Flamen Dialis, which translates to priest of Jupiter. At the same time, an important dispute was taking place over the control of Rome. Consul Cinna and Gaius Marius participated in the civil war against Lucius Cornelius Sulla. During this time, Rome was ruled by the consul Cinna for a short while. Just before this happened, Cornelia, who was Cinna's daughter, married Julius Caesar. Their daughter, Julia, was born from this marriage, and Cornelia is regarded as Caesar's true love. However, the time of closeness of Julius Caesar with the leader of Rome ended with the assassination of Cinna, when Lucius Cornelius Sulla proclaimed himself dictator of the Roman Republic. Sulla starts to persecute everyone who is connected to his enemies to exact revenge, and since Julius is the nephew of Gaius Marius and the son-in-law of Cinna, Sulla targets him, causing him to flee and live in exile. However, through the intervention of his mother's family, Sulla spares his life in exchange for his priestly title and Cornelia's wealth. It is here that Julius Caesar's true natural habitat is revealed. Without money or a job, he joins the Roman army. Here, Caesar's genius unfolds during his early military career in 81 BC, serving under Marcus Minucius Thermus in Asia Minor. He received the civic crown in recognition of his value in combat during the siege of Mytilene on the island of Lesbos. This distinguished honor portended his future military triumphs. By the time Caesar returned to Rome after his success in Asia Minor, Sulla had already died of natural causes. This meant that Julius Caesar could now act more actively in Roman politics, allowing him to begin his meteoric political rise in the Roman Republic, which was increasingly becoming chaotic. The Republican system struggled to manage all of Rome's territories, which gave leaders like Sulla and Caesar a chance to rise to power, even though the Senate still controlled Rome. After Sulla's death, one of his closest associates took control of Roman politics. His name was Pompey the Great, Rome's most important military commander at the time, who had gained recognition after defeating the brave Spartacus in the Third Servile War. Following the unexpected death of his wife Cornelia, Julius Caesar remarried. His new wife, Pompeia, was the granddaughter of the dictator Sulla, which helped him connect with Sulla's political supporters, including Pompey. Caesar and Pompey formed a strong alliance when he married his daughter Julia to him. Once again, Julius Caesar was in alliance with one of the most powerful men in Rome. During this time, Julius Caesar stood out in many areas. He served as a successful lawyer and formerly belonged to the popular faction, a political group with a strong presence in the Senate. He also suffered his kidnapping by pirates on a trip to Greece, whom he ended up crucifying once he was released. Thanks to his political astuteness and his alliance with Pompey, Julius Caesar ascended as Pontiff of Rome, which brought him closer to yet another of the most powerful men in Rome, specifically the richest man in Rome, Crassus, who also fought in the Third Servile War and controlled multiple Roman legions. Julius Caesar knew that by forming an alliance with Crassus and maintaining his closeness with Pompey, he would have the greatest possible political influence in Rome. Nevertheless, Crassus and Pompey were rivals, mainly because Pompey took credit for the defeat of Spartacus and the rebels. Caesar decided to act as a mediator between the two and convinced them to create an alliance with such strength that not even the large political factions of the Senate would oppose him. This is how the First Triumvirate is born, the alliance with which Julius Caesar begins to take control of Roman politics. This is when, once appointed praetor, Julius Caesar enters Hispania Ulterior and begins the magnanimous campaign that results in his greatest triumph, the Gallic Wars. The triumvirate set the goal of expanding Rome into new territories, and a political agreement was created between the three participants. Pompey would be in charge of Hispania, Crassus would go to Syria, and Caesar would go to Gaul. However, Pompey did not honor the political agreement and stayed in Rome to lead the Senate. So Caesar took care of Hispania, but without forgetting that Pompey broke the deal that the triumvirate had agreed upon. Caesar was assigned to Hispania Ulterior, an important peninsular territory at the time. Every man yearns for his moment of glory, and Julius Caesar was ready to claim it. He was sent as questor. His responsibility was to keep the accounts of the province and dispense justice in the name of Rome. From this position of power, he began to create a patronage network to gain the loyalty of those he helped. This is where the anecdote of Gades, a city in the province, takes place, where he found a statue of Alexander the Great, and it is said that Julius Caesar wept in front of it and said, "At my age you had already conquered infinite peoples. I still have to take care of Hispania." Julius was very ashamed of himself and how he hadn't lived up to his hero. This was a wake-up call for him. Caesar's political career continued in Rome, now as propraetor, and his involvement in Hispania was bearing fruit, with more than 30 cohorts. It could be argued that Caesar already possessed his own small army. With an independent command and in a land that had not yet been completely conquered, Julius Caesar found the perfect solution to two goals. First, to find booty to pay his creditors a debt he had been dragging along. The second was the chance to make Hispania something the Roman people would be proud of. He knew that the plebs of Rome loved conquests above all else, so if he made Hispania something they could be proud of, it would guarantee his candidacy as consul. Caesar decided that the only way to celebrate a great victory was to solve a big problem. So after subduing large groups of bandits, he set out for the Lutian territory, ordering all the people living in the mountains to come down to the plains and live in the cities. A simple but very effective way to create a conflict. The Lucians flatly refused, so Caesar declared war on them. He focused the conflict on raising capital and stealing large amounts of loot that allowed him to pay his debts and finance his campaign. The Lucians were no match for the 30 cohorts led by Caesar's extraordinary military mind. Julius Caesar advanced through the Lucian territories, annexing them to Rome until he reached the territories of Gallicia. Complete victory in Hispania was achieved once the Lusitanians were defeated, which, following his plan, also secured his position as consul. But Caesar, seeing the spectacular result of his victory against the Lusitanians, knew he had to aim even higher, setting his sights on Gaul, where his political agreement dictated he should present himself. Without hesitation, he headed north and began his largest military campaign. This concludes part 1 of our saga about Julius Caesar's life, where we explored his early years, rise to power, and his first military campaigns. In part 2, we'll dive into the conquest of Gaul, the civil war against his former ally Pompey, the events that led to his assassination, and so much more. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Thank you all for watching. If there's a historical figure you'd like to see featured next, or if you have any thoughts to share, feel free to leave a comment below. I'll see you in the next video.